It's a little weird, but stay with me. Representative Finke wants a bill to be passed that makes the government provide housing for LGBT runaways. During this guy, Walter Hudson, proposed an amendment that said, okay, as long as we look out for the exploitation of the children in our custody. And the rest of these fools are like, actually, no, that's not a good amendment because it adds steps. And we love Miss Finken. Here's a few clips, watch.
Representative Finke presented as justification for this needs analysis the fact that LGBT youth are disproportionately represented in the homelessness community, and that this presents an urgent need for a couple of reasons. And the reasons that were cited were discrimination in housing and employment, and then, most interestingly, the notion of family rejection, that family rejection is contributing to LGBT youth homelessness. Now, youth is certainly inclusive of minors.
But it's not weird at all that we consider these minors LGBTQ+. What do you think? This is some kind of sex thing?
So we heard from Representative Finke and have heard from folks who work with LGBTQIA plus youth about the need for shelter. And what the provision is about is saying, hey, we need to have a site analysis and a plan to actually provide that shelter, right? So everything from the real estate components, like where would this be located, all those sorts of things, and the needs analysis along the way as is listed here. What the amendment would do is add these considerations as part of that needs analysis. Adding the two provisions here, and my point is, and so that obviously is a change, right? I think Representative Lorders, you probably acknowledge that would sort of add some additional considerations as they're putting that in.
He's basically saying, listen, pal, your little considerations, they're no good here. Go on, get.
Just to be clear, what I just heard is that the custodial rights of parents and legal guardians of minor children and the precautions necessary to shield youth from sexual manipulation or exploitation by adults gets in the way of the purpose of this provision.
On a real note, this is actually horrifying. All of it. We're so far out of the plot. It's like a weird nightmare. Some kind of tentacle monster in the sky dropping different dreams on everybody.
I think that it's dangerous and perpetuates kind of an attack on our queer community that doesn't need to be.
Representative Katiza White-Toon. Your vibe gives, Karen, and I don't think you know what you're talking about.
Here in statute, because I think that this is something that the legislature should be considering for children of all backgrounds and not necessarily singling out folks who are a part of our queer community. And so, I mean, to the folks who are watching this today, to our youth who are still exploring and figuring out who they are, I want them to know that they are seen and that they are loved and that we are doing everything that we can to ensure that they are safe and welcome in their communities. And I don't think that this amendment does that. So I would urge a no vote.
She's basically like,
well, I just think 2 + 4 = 7.
Probably going to scrub it after I say this. If you go and you look at the website for our space, they proudly display the shelter that they currently have. You know what they call it? The Q, letter Q, T, letter T, castle. Cutie castle. Cutie castle. It's got a hot tub. It's got a swimming pool. Looks really inviting. Looks like a party palace. Homelessness youth shelter. Seems a little groomy to me.
I went ahead and looked up the website. It's just those two pictures, just two pools. If you're into becoming LGBT and like swimming, you can go to these resorts basically for free on the government. And it's all proposed by this person.
Data is clear. There are some people who detransition. It is very few. Just last week, we saw this report from England. Many people are probably familiar with it on the other side of the aisle. It studied hormones and puberty blockers, and it found very complicated results. But one of the things it did not find was detransitioners. Statistically insignificant, between 0 and 10 people in that longitudinal study of trans people and their health care, 0 to 10 people detransitioned. We don't even know because they don't even put the number in. They just put an X in the page because it doesn't matter. It's too few to even matter in the study.
So if you were cut apart and butchered, you're labeled statistically insignificant. You better pull yourself up by your bootstraps after your wiener's been cut off, because this is America. And I think these two would disagree, but he says it perfectly.
That's pretty astounding.